Okay, so the first and probably the most important thing that you need to get in check before you first spar is the ability to control your temper. Now, there's two types of fighting. You've got like martial arts, boxing, all of that stuff, and you've got street fighting. Street fighting is massively fueled by anger and aggression and blokes seeing red, all right? But if you try carry this over into boxing or any martial art for that matter, you're going to end up getting battered. And I'll start by telling a story. So I remember when I was like 14, 15 years old, I was sparring this guy who'd just come into the boxing gym, and he was like quite a big, tough, like man, basically. And, but he couldn't control his temper at all. And it was annoying him that I just kept like popping him with a jab. And so I could see in his eyes, he was getting angry and he was getting super aggressive, just trying to take my head off. But what happens when you can't control your temper and you try and use this anger as like fuel or some bullshit is you just tense up, telegraph your punches. You only throw power shots. You neglect your jab. You don't have like proper defense after your shots. You're not thinking about being punched yourself. You're just so focused on trying to like hurt someone that you just end up getting hurt. And what was happening was every time I pop him with the jab, he like come in swinging, trying to take my head off, and I literally just move back like an inch, it would miss by a mile, and he'd like fall off balance, and then you just pop him with a few more shots, and he started getting more and more angry until at the end they like called off the spar, and he just like sat in the, like, this is a fully grown man, he just sat in the corner of the ring and just like threw his head guard off. He was like in a strop. Right. So if you've got like problems controlling your temper, then you need to make sure that you get that checked out. So this emotional reactivity comes from your daily life. So if in daily life you have things that upset you and annoy you, and you let them get to you and you react emotionally and you get in a strop, then it's going to carry over into the ring. So you've got to stop it in your daily life first so that you have that emotional control. A great way of doing this that I always try and practice is trying not to complain about anything. I've got a back injury at the minute, and like the temptation to constantly complain about it because it's just this niggling pain is like super high. But the less you complain about stuff, the more you have that ability to stop expressing your pain out into the world, and the more control you have over it. So stop doing that in your daily life. When you get a temptation to, I don't know, eat junk food, don't indulge. That's building resilience. If someone says something mean to you, or, you know, does something that makes you feel shit, then just don't let it get to you, mate. If you've got anxiety, just don't worry about it, mate. Okay, what will happen if you don't take control of this? Then inevitably it will seep over into your boxing, and you'll never be able to be completely present. You'll always be thinking about how to do as much damage as possible, or thinking about, oh, I don't want to get hit, and you'll never be able to actually be in the moment and box effectively. So you need to control your temper so you've got clarity of mind, and then when you've got clarity of mind and you're present in the moment, your body will react much quicker, and it will react in accordance with the amount of training you've been doing. So there we go. That's number one. All right. The second most important thing you need to make sure you've got ticked off before you get in the ring and spar is having the basic fundamental skill level, technical ability, so that you don't just get in there and practice the wrong things. Right. If you don't know how to hold your stance and shape whilst you're moving around, not crossing your feet over, being able to throw a proper jab and a cross and a left hook, then if you don't know how to do those things, you'll obviously go in there with natural instincts, fighting brain, where you'll just go in there like swinging like this. And all that's going to happen is you'll just get better at doing the wrong things that don't work. So you need to make sure that before you start sparring, you have the basic fundamentals down, so you can get in there and practice the basic fundamentals before you can build off all the other skills. All right. So it's very common someone will get in the ring when they first spar and they'll just go into that like natural fighting mode where they just don't use any boxing skills that they've learned, and they just try and swing to land big punches. But it's much better to start off with just like jab only sparring, so you get used to using the jab and then building from there, as opposed to just getting in there and just, trying to figure it out yourself. Okay, so how do you actually get better before getting in the ring? Well, you need to drill all the punches either on the pads or on the bags or just shadow boxing until you get the basic movement pattern down before you start trying to throw any punches in sparring. Also doing like rounds and rounds and rounds of just footwork, just holding your stance and shape as you're moving around. Just getting used to moving about the ring before you actually get in there and, have to think about your feet or you crossing your feet over, falling off balance, because your feet need to know what they're doing by themselves. You shouldn't be thinking about that. That should be something that you just do naturally. If you don't do this, you'll keep getting into spar and you'll just keep getting battered by the people who've got the technical ability that you don't. So make sure you get the drills done. Make sure you understand the fundamentals before you get in the ring. And remember, if you can't do something outside of the ring, there's a 0% chance that you can do it inside the ring. So especially when you've got like a moving target and someone trying to punch you, it's a lot more difficult. So make sure you can do it outside before you bring it inside. Okay, so now that you know the 2 things that you need to check off before you get in the ring for the first time, now I'm going to give you 3 things which you can do, or 3 things you can keep at the forefront of your mind so that when you do get in the ring, you can have a competitive advantage. Okay, so the first thing you can do to gain a competitive advantage is take the center of the ring and don't go back. Whilst you're doing this, make sure that you're cutting off the ring using back foot pivots, pushing them slowly into the corners before you get your punches off. The second thing is using constant feints and triggers before you throw so that you open up your opponent's defense and make it easy to land. The third thing is measuring the range using your lead foot as opposed to landing your jab or just judging it by eye. Use your front foot by getting it as close to your opponent's front foot as possible so that you know that you're in range. You can do this also whilst keeping your head out of range by leaning back slightly, which means that they can't hit you, but you can, with a slight lean forward, hit them and then defend. If you want to fast track your boxing skills, i.e. move faster, hit harder with technique that's sharper, then you could join Hybrid Warrior Elite. It's my online boxing program. It'll be the first link in the description, or go to hybridwarriorelite.com.